Alright. Good to have you here. Not everybody's here today because of education, work, and other responsibilities, of course. So that's a little bit what we're trying to fix. So please, if we get set a date, try to be here as well. Today we're here at Lively. So this time at Lively, last time at Uber. This is their office. I think Peter is going to tell you a little bit more about what it's like to work here as well. Some of the things Jesse and I want to share about the program. It's really important, of course, that you guys get in touch with your mentors. It's the responsibility of the students that you get in touch with the mentors. So please get in touch with the mentors. If he or she doesn't respond, please contact me or Jesse. Then we try to push it from another side. But again, if you have to be proactive, so it's really important because else nothing happens. Some of you already have had their first one-on-one session, so good going. I think that's
good
fine.
busy.
Good busy, yeah. So that's okay. That's cool. So keep it going. So what Jesse and I just discussed previously is that you have to have your first session in February. So try to get your first session in February. If you already have planned another one for February, you can keep up the normal pace, but make sure that you get your first session in February. And for the mentors, if you aren't contacted yet, please let us know as well, so we know what's going on. And we try to put everything on the platform. So if you think like there's some miscommunication, most of the information we try to share it on Plaque. So that's for us the go-to platform. So Jesse and I are pretty active on sharing the posts, on sharing who's mentoring who. Sometimes we have one-on-one chats with students or mentors via Plaque as well. It keeps it for us and makes it easier to keep it centralized as well. So did I forget anything?
No, I don't think so.
No.
So I don't know if you want to share some insights so far or feedback or.
Yeah, put it on the platforms. Just after your one-on-one meeting, please share one or two insights you had, like we made our learning goals, or we talked about other things than what we tried to do, but still it was really helpful because just a quick few sentences what you have discussed, so we get also a little bit of insights in what where you're at in your development, and also for us it gives us valuable feedback for the program as well.
Maybe one last question, because of course we want to collect a lot of feedback and see how everything is going. So we want to start an intervision group with mentors and students and us, just to see how the program is going. So if you're interested to join, just let us know. I think after tonight we will set a date for it. So if you're interested to share learnings and think with us how we can improve the program, then let us know.
So some students were into it, so we tried to grab a lunch or grab a drink and just have a chat about your experiences and obstacles or things to improve upon. So just let us know. We'll ask you later on as well. Yeah. Are there any questions for us as the organization beforehand? No? Okay.
Easy group.
Yes.
Then it's up to you.
For sure.
Yes.
Thank
you. All right. So, welcome everyone. It's so nice to see you again. It's been a little while since we've seen each other at Uber at the last time. So, thank you so much for being here and for joining us in this sort of the first meetup session. So, I'm the first one, so we're going to see how this works out and how each of the companies is going to do this in a different way. I set a poll on the Plaque and put in some very different topics, ranging from like super technical to more career advice, and I got a lot of results that people were very interested in the career part. So this was I still had the time to create the presentation, so I've completely tailor-made it for tonight based on the feedback from the group. It's a super interesting topic. I've delved deeper in it myself, and I hope that we can maybe get a little bit of a discussion going. So I've got some questions in the slides as well. So maybe if there's anything you would like to add or that we can discuss about, would be really great. And I think for the planning of the night, we want to first have this first session, which I think is aiming at being like somewhere around 45 minutes maybe, and then afterwards some room for some Q&A, and I will be the only speaker, so afterwards we will serve some pizzas and have some drinks, so please take the time to get to know each other better and to network and ask each other more questions and see if we can get something going here. I think the topic is also very nice for the one-on-one sessions as a sort of a subject to talk about and to think about a little bit more. All right. So before I completely delve into the topic, just a little bit more about myself. My name is Peter Peerdeman. I'm a CTO at Lively, so leading the delivery team. What's the next one? Yeah. So I've started actually doing full stack development, which was I think almost 6 years ago at Lively. Previously I've worked for a very big consulting company, and after doing a lot of full stack development, I was also responsible for hiring a lot of the team and training the first front end and back end developers to create our web applications, and it's sort of evolved a little bit into partly technical leadership at our clients. So we work for multiple clients and basically create products for them that they get maintained for 4 years. So it's really long-lasting products. Doing leadership development inside the office, but also for now externally with the mentees as well, which is a very nice expansion on this, and doing mentoring and hiring for the team. A little bit more about myself. I'm a big fan of electronic music production nowadays. So I've got this Instagram channel which I post short snippets of electronic dance music. So if you're into that kind of stuff, please let me know. It's turning knobs and creating some nice beats.
Cool. Where's your SoundCloud?
Sorry?
Where's your SoundCloud?
My SoundCloud is Tater Music. Yeah, so I like it. Yeah. All right, so a little bit more about Lively. We're a digital product company helping out small, medium-sized businesses to bigger corporates with creating a product development mindset. And we do this by basically bringing a little bit of digital decency inside the digital agency world. So basically creating digital solutions. We do this with product consulting. So starting out, finding out what it is that needs to be built, doing the concept and design, so creating like high fidelity production, development ready stories with prototypes and detailed descriptions. Then development, DevOps, so we also host the solutions ourselves. And doing a lot of cultural knowledge transfer once teams get up to speed to deliver this product further. And maybe a very nice remark that our clients used to give us is, well, they basically ask us, can you build this product? And they ask, how much does it cost and how long is it going to take? And then of course we go through these hoops of doing an offer and building the product and trying to make clear that it's not just that product that you're creating, but that you're learning how product development works. And this is something that our customers give back to us. After half a year, they say, "Oh, I've not just got a product from you, but I now understand how I can use IT to solve problems and to expand on this system and know how we can build software ourselves." A couple of clients that we work for, a couple of nice ones stand out with the Ministry of Defense, a very large project for a language institute that does Dutch as a second language. So for the English speakers over here, you should probably check them out. They have the best information system that's in their market. And another very nice one is Sharkondik, which is a super big compliance agency. So they check whether their clients actually are compliant to the law, and they have a super cool digital product to help companies with. So probably Uber and ING could use this product very well to make sure that they don't get fined and Sorry?
We didn't hire them, right?
Okay. All right, just to get a little bit of an idea how this looks like. On the top left, we have one of the concept sessions where we have the Ministry of Defense team over to talk about the latest version of the application. It's a mobile app that we're creating there with our conceptors and designers, sort of figuring out what it is going to be that people will be using instead of approaching this project as, oh, it needs to integrate with SAP and it's going to be huge and sort of over our heads. We try to make it as small as possible and make it sort of very tangible to know that it will actually get used in the end. All right, so this is a little bit of the introduction to get a little bit of the context for where I'm coming from and where I'm speaking from. But today I wanted to talk about sort of management and experts. With a nice quote to start this off with. People don't leave companies, people leave bad managers. And I think this was super interesting. I think the term management has quite a sort of negative connotation, a negative term. And I think this has also sort of skewed the perspective a little bit on your career advancement and not really being sure if I want to go into management and have this sort of this negative term associated to you, even though I think it's a super important part of the possible options. So I wanted to get this discussion started and maybe see if we, along with the other mentors, maybe please help me out when I'm saying some strange stuff, but maybe to sort of rectify this a little bit and to see what the possibilities in careers are. All right, so right off the bat, pro tip: find a good manager, and keep looking until you find the right one. This is one of the things that certainly has helped me a lot as well. Is that once you find someone, well, you're already looking for good mentors, right? Because you're here at the HelloMentor program. So if you find someone that is able to sort of spark your fire and to facilitate you in your growth, it's one of the biggest optimizations that you can do in your in the early start of your career, and sort of experimenting with different people guiding you around is super helpful and gives you tremendous insight. So maybe to start off with questions. If someone there has to be an answer to this because it covers the complete spectrum. So has anyone had any experience with good or bad management that they would like to share, or that they dare to share? Maybe from the students? Someone must have worked somewhere on some, maybe over here?
Yeah, I used to work at a restaurant. We had a manager and he would always yell at everybody, call them names. If you made one mistake, it would be just shouting for 3 hours. Maybe it's a bit of an extreme case, but that really created this hostile environment all the time. I would laugh about it, but most people didn't.
Had quite the adverse effect that he was trying to achieve.
Yeah, I tried to motivate people.
Okay.
We were just this restaurant where students work, so it's not this kind of big goal people have in their lives to achieve. So it just didn't work that way.
And do you think the intentions of this manager were sort of good?
Well, yeah, but I sort of believe people always have a good intention one way or another.
Very optimistic, yeah. But that's good, yeah. Because I can imagine it's like the way that he was sort of trying to convey the message. It was probably a different message that he was actually telling.
Yeah, probably.
Because he did want to motivate everyone. Well, behind every sort of bad story, there's probably a very good intention and a lot of sort of unspoken communication. Maybe someone else with sort of a good experience from a manager.
Sure.
Yeah.
I worked at Deloitte and my manager was like really patient with me, so I didn't know how to work and stuff like that. And he had a lot of patience. He was like really helping me out if I get stuck somewhere. So I think that's like really good management. Don't expect like that you can do everything, but expect that you will learn along the way.
And how did you sort of experience this patience that he had?
Really good, because I was like, it was my first job at programming or something like that, and well, sometimes I get stuck like on spots that it's like really stupid to get stuck there. But it was my first time, so if he gets like angry at me, then I would stop really quickly. But he was like really patient with me, said all the stuff, helped me find the solution, and that helped me to improve myself.
Yeah.
It's really important factor to have as a manager.
Yeah. And when you noticed that this manager had this patience for you, were you later on like more inclined to share more with him or to communicate more?
Yeah, for sure. I was like sharing everything, and that's
Yeah.
because you don't expect like that he will get angry with you.
Mm.
So yeah, you mind less to share it.
Yeah. And was he also the one that sort of managed the wages? So if you would get a raise or not?
Yeah, he had influence on that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's also a super interesting topic, right? Because if you're sort of talking to the person that also judges you, that there's a little bit of a power dynamic there as well, which is a super important part where mentors also come in that are more objective, right? And they don't have sort of how do you say this, an advantage or disadvantage in giving you a raise or not. Okay, nice. All right, so
I have something.
Yeah.
I think besides good or bad management, there is also different styles of management,
Mhm.
right? And it's not, of course, it's a matter of finding something that fits you, but what fits some person might
Yeah.
be not what fits others,
Yeah.
right? And I know people that micromanage every task of your team. People that say, hey, you are responsible for that. If you need something from me, ask, right? And depending what kind of person, both can feel really bad or really good, right? If you are someone looking for more responsibility or to just experiment and fail, and you are able to fail, and then keep going, maybe the second one is a good option. But if you are totally new and you know what's happening, maybe to start with a manager is also.
it will give a lot of guidance, right? So it's not micromanaging someone. It's not a bad thing per se to start with. Yeah, it's a nice insight.
I mean, the ideal one is the one who can actually manage differently different persons, right? If you are a manager that's able to read your team and say, hey, this guy needs more control than this other guy, that would be the ideal one. But there is also like shades of gray.
Yeah, nice. Thanks for the insight. So one thing that I thought was interesting, I was just going through this topic and sort of figuring out some stuff that I've seen in the past and seeing if I can piece together something. There was something that I found really interesting, and I was really curious if people heard of this. It's not actually my principle, it's a different Peter. Who knows about the Peter principle? Any hands? No one? Maybe when yeah, I see someone maybe at the front right. All right, that's good. So then I have something new to tell. That's good. So the Peter principle is, in a hierarchy, every employee tends to rise to his level of incompetence by Lawrence J. Peter. So that's where the name comes from. And it's such a sort of a mind-boggling thing, and it's very true as well. You really need to watch for this. So I found this nice illustration in a blog to explain this. So you have you start somewhere, you get promoted, and then you're very happy because you're doing a good job. So you get motivated to do even a better job. Then you're still very good at your job, and you're excelling, and you're a talent, and you're getting promoted again. And when you got to the third phase, you start putting on your cape, and you think like, I am a superhero, I can do anything. Until you get promoted again and basically get to a job where you completely fail and you don't sort of find your way in it. At this point, it's just a question whether or not this will sort of turn up and you will actually discuss this with your manager or discuss this with someone, that it will sort of result in either finding a different trajectory or getting into a different role or whatever. But what usually or what happens a lot of the time is that people sort of blow themselves up in a new function, and that it doesn't really get noticed. So people get promoted towards the place where they're incompetent to do the task, which is like the biggest shame ever, right? So I think the part that I wanted to address during this talk is mostly like be aware of these kind of influence that certain promotions or certain paths in your career have, and feel empowered to sort of talk about this with a mentor or talk about this with other people to avoid sort of getting stuck in a place where you might be promoted to management that doesn't fit, or promoted to a senior position that doesn't fit that well, or that you're not that comfortable with yet. So basically, to sort of solve or to help with this kind of behavior. So it's usually when people get promoted from being an expert to being a manager, even though they didn't really want to be a manager, it doesn't fit that well. Which is why the top companies acknowledge the need for separate expert and management tracks, because one of the main things there's a lot of resources that you can find online how Google does this. So I'm going to use Google a lot as an example, even though they're not one of the companies that are in the program, but I thought they had a really nice philosophy. I really like this example there. So partly because of the Peter principle, so you don't want to get a promotion into something that you're incompetent at, but mostly about equal pay for different kinds of specialties. So what happens in a lot of companies is that you have certain ranks that go to a certain level, and then when people want to get paid more, they have to go into a management track to get into the higher ranks. And this is something that Google saw and wanted to avoid, because in a company like Google, they also want to have experts that are that stay inside this expert track to do an amazing individual contributing job. So they're figuring out a way how they can sort of have an equal amount of pay that people in both tracks can have. I think this is a wonderful philosophy. I think every company should think about if this is possible. I also think that it might not be for every company that it's really possible to have this super deep, like super high paid, equal pay to a certain executive or someone that has a super high management function. But it's something that I would sort of aspire and try to sort of get everyone to think about as much as possible. All right, so you have this on the one side.
How do you do it here at Lively?
That's a good question. So we've started 6 years ago, and we've been mostly building the team on making sure that everyone is an individual contributor. And of course, we've always said like we want to keep the hierarchy as little as possible, and we don't want to have like managers managing people. But we've also found that if you're growing for broadly, that there's a lot of need for a support network as well. And I think one of the parts that I found really important within Lively is that there's sort of a support for everyone to be able to develop themselves further. And this kind of support is something that I would see as giving this support would be something I would see as a management track, because it's a completely different skill set. So that's what we're sort of aiming to create at Lively. We're just seeing the first people experimenting with this management track within Lively to see if this fits and if this is something that fits their goals, their personal goals as well. Yeah. So it's not like laid out that you have the book already and you can choose each and you have the ranks everywhere. But it's something that we have to start working on. Yeah.
And at ING?
Oh, that's a good question.
We have both. I don't think it's feasible that ever our individual contributor or expert will ever get to the level of CEO is getting paid for. Yeah, also because of the fact that it's a bank. But yeah, so they did change a couple of years ago to which heights or basically to which salary your experts go. And it goes very high. I'm not saying Silicon Valley money, but for Dutch perspective, it goes high.
Nice little bridge and Uber. Silicon Valley money.
We use the Google model, so we have two separate tracks, one for ICs and one for managers.
Cool. Do you use the same terminology as well?
Yeah, we use ICs and managers.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, nice to see. Good. All right, so I already spoiled it a little bit. I like this image of this idea that engineer and managers sort of have this intersection, but that the common part is actually can be very tiny, and that the skills and competencies of being a manager are very different, and that this switch from one to the other, or this gradual growth towards the other, is something that's a very conscious path that you have to think about and know, like what are the competences that I want to develop, and does this even suit me as well? That's the source on the bottom. So maybe just a little show of hands. Any hands for ICs or experts that you're feeling about, or like this is my category? Yeah, ICs. Because the other question, of course, is hands for managers or people thinking about this. He's looking at this. Yeah. Aantal.
I see.
Yeah. Well, interesting. Yeah. But that's just a little bit of a thermometer to see how the current look at this is. All right. So some extra observations I made during my sort of research into this topic. What I said. Technical expertise requires different skill development than management. So if you have a certain technological challenge, like I want to do machine learning, there's a set of skills that you have to learn, right? It's sort of, you have to research something to research the task that you want to do, and to find out what are the skills that I need to do this certain specific challenge. And for management track, from my perspective, it's quite similar. It's when you have a certain challenge that you want to do, like mentoring someone, or sort of doing one-on-one sessions with multiple reports, people that report to you. These are in a very similar way also tasks that you can research and find out about, like what are the skills that I need for this. Second one that I found is that good managers choose to manage and don't get sort of pushed into this role. And I've read a lot of different stories. I've got some of the sources at the end as well, so you can look this in.
Just one thing, like my impression, even the last slides, we make it very black and white.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I could compare that to, like, development and design. And
Mm-hmm.
Design is kind of different and
Mm-hmm.
creative, and development is really hardcore and very hard. Doesn't mean you can not be both good at both.
That's
So
perfectly fine.
it's very black and white, but there's a lot of grays in there.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned it's tiny.
Yeah.
To disagree.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'll get there sort of during the when we get to the end more.
To start a discussion a little bit.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Because I think on both tracks there's also a lot of overlap on sort of skills that maybe the South Park image was a little bit too tiny, and that these circles do get closer some more. So that I'm spoiling a little bit for the end of the presentation, but there's a number of skills that are super important for both of these tracks that I think are very worthwhile to investigate. Oh, we'll get there. I'll leave some room for the Q&A at the end. Okay. All right. So what I also do, and maybe it's also related to a point. So switches do happen. So people that are going into this expert track, that go into management, or from management back into individual contributorship, do happen. But they do take a lot of effort, and sometimes it's also a hurdle for people to go from one side to the other side, because well, it might be that if you're a level 3 engineer and you switch to the management part, that it would be strange to start at a level 3 there as well. So you might get a step into a lower level. Is there something strange about that, or does it work that way as well? Yeah.
And I would argue that only happens in one direction.
Mm.
Yeah.
From engineer to manager, but I don't see other managers become engineers.
Well, it's not entirely.
I think not a lot.
No, fair. But I mean, one of the things that I think between these switches that what really makes it hard is that usually people don't accept going from level 3 to level 1.
That's the thing.
So what then happens is you go from level 3 engineer to level 3 manager,
Mhm.
where you get sort of into the Peter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where you're absolutely not ready to be a level 3
Yeah.
manager, but
Yeah.
people taking a pay cut or actually stepping down in responsibilities is extremely rare.
But it is interesting because that would be sort of the way that you would want to go. Yeah.
But isn't it like when you're an engineer and you're going to get extra tasks to do, for example management tasks, is that you get a top on what you already earned because you're doing extra new stuff.
Mm.
Or I don't know if it works like that, but it sounds logical to me because you're already a good engineer, so you're not going to get a pay cut based on that. But you're going to do an extra task, management task, so you get a top one instead of like instead of punishing,
Yeah.
you reward
Yeah.
the extra development.
So
personal
what
development.
I've seen mostly is that when you get to a higher expert level, that there's also a part in there where you're also sort of sharing knowledge and you're mentoring people, which is different from actually having reports and managing people. I don't know if that sort of is in the same realm, but it's just different responsibilities that come with a higher expert role. I don't know if there's actually like doing a management job besides it and then adding on. I don't know.
Quentin, how do you guys do it?
Most of the managers that we have are full-time managers, so they're not contributing individually.
What when you're an engineer, you're going to get into management?
Yeah, that you are a full-time manager.
So you stop engineering at like hard stop?
Yeah, so we have an apprentice program so that you can become a manager, and during that time you just love. But it's more like an education and learning program. But when you become a manager, you are a manager. So that's yeah, but
You're
it's not.
no longer an engineer.
But I think that's an important thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that being a manager is okay. I have a lot of tasks now. I can delegate all those tasks to others. Right? I know how to do things, and now I can tell Peter, hey Peter, you should do that for me. And that's not what management is. Management is how to grow people and how to develop people. That's a different mindset. So yes, you cannot do that and contribute individually, and you need to spend time on developing people.
I would even maybe stress it more. So I had a very interesting discussion with one of the partners of Lively about this topic, where Pim, which is my partner, very adamantly said like you cannot really do proper growth management if you have not been an individual contributor, because you don't have the same empathy to the team of actually being in their shoes and helping them out, doing at least a little bit of mentoring, coaching, and the growing. So that's something that I'm a big fan of myself as well. So sort of maybe the tracks, I've made it very black and white, like it's either or, but for me it would make only sense to start as an individual contributor, at least to sort of understand what the field is like. Yeah.
That's more in line, so within IT especially, well mainly within IT, or almost only in IT, we use the Spotify model as in working agile and Scrum, and so we have teams consisting of tribes and squads, and well, these guys know way better because I personally haven't worked in that way yet. But I don't know, but you have like, correct me if I'm wrong, tribe leads, squad leads, a team of data scientists where one person is the lead. It's called a chapter lead, of course. A chapter lead, and that chapter lead is roughly 50-50 manager and 50% still a data scientist.
Yeah.
In practice, well,
They're
I'm
very
sure in
easy.
some
Yeah.
circumstances it's a little bit different, but the idea is that the manager still oversees the growth of the other data scientists and then still contribute.
Yeah.
Individually has
To
contributed.
stay technically,
Oh, yeah.
to stay technically on top of things, and that's one of the biggest sort of challenges in this management track. Yeah.
Especially back in the day, before this whole new model was implemented within ING, we had managers who were good at one thing, and that was managing people, making
Yeah.
sure that their
Yeah.
team was developing properly
Yeah.
and had no clue about it.
Yeah, that doesn't really happen anymore, right?
It does.
Yeah, it does. Okay.
Unfortunately, it does. I think there are a lot of IT managers within ING who never like written one line of code.
Okay.
You know, in general, in big corporates, there is a line or a layer of managers that the only thing they know is how to manage.
Yeah.
Because they grew to these positions
Mhm.
by learning how to manage.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays you not necessarily need only know how to manage, but how things work.
Okay, nice. All right, so maybe continuing on, I think I want to say a couple of things about this expert tracks as well. I found it really interesting to see these different levels. I don't actually know if this is super interesting per se, or that you already know something about these ranks. Who has either seen a rung or ranks sheet from one of these companies? Who has not seen one of these sheets? Okay, that's good. Yeah. Okay. And know a little bit. I'll just continue on with this. So as time passes, you gain experience, but experience and growth are not the same thing. So that was basically going back to something that I said earlier as well. It would be interesting if someone wanted to take a stab at the idea of what this growth means that we were talking about. One of the students. Yeah.
Actually incorporate experience into yourself.
How do you mean incorporate?
What can I take out of it instead of just leaving it as an experience that you experience?
Mm-hmm. And seeing how you can improve on that, or
to take out of it anything.
Yeah. Maybe someone else in a different angle.
I would say growth is getting a little bit outside of your comfort zone. There is the area of where magic happens and you start learning new things. While experience is if I do repeatedly the same thing every day, yeah, I get experience, I know how to do it correct, and this is it. It's more about routine.
Yeah. I think one of the most interesting parts that I've found about growth is that the process of growing yourself is also like a skill that you need to develop. So this idea of I've got a certain skill, like I'm writing code, for instance, and I keep writing code, so I get better at writing code, and you gain experience. But actually, growing, like developing yourself further, is like a completely different skill set itself. Like it involves getting mentors. It involves finding people to give you feedback. It involves sort of challenging yourself, trying things out, failing at stuff, not being hard on yourself, and continuing in this path. Yeah, something.
Did you read about the growth mindset, the book mindset?
I don't know especially about the book, but I've heard about the term.
It's pretty interesting, and I found it amazing. And I read the book, and basic idea is they put 7-year-olds in the room, gave them puzzles, and they find kind of the maximum level of the puzzles for people, the young children. And then they take 2 groups, and they ask one of the groups, do you want more difficult or the same level? And then you basically have 2 types of people. You have the people, and kind of, it's not one-on-one what you're saying, but there's a difference between basically, depending on how you're teaching and telling things to the children. Some of them are going to say, I want basically the same level, because then they're validating by the fact that they can do it. And so, which she calls the fixed mindset, was basically you have the experience on doing something, and basically, I'm good because I can do that. And then you have the other children, which are being taught what she calls the growth mindset, which is basically more how did you manage to grow? How did you do better than last time? How did you do more difficult? And yeah, those two mindsets, the difference between being good and actually actively trying to become better. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And
Yeah.
you see very different behaviors in people, and it's not like one person is fixed and the other one is growth. It depends on the mindset, it depends on the situation, it depends on the different things that people are doing. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and it's also not being good or bad. That
Exactly.
either you are, someone who has the growth mindset or has this. I've read somewhere that they were talking about like rock stars versus what was it? Rock stars or superstars, like people that want to keep growing and maybe risk, getting into the Peter principle and blowing themselves up, or a rock star that's like solid as a rock and just does the thing that they do very well and want to elaborate on that part. So something that I found out is that on the expert path, unlike the management path, is often sort of more ambiguous. So it takes more effort to find out like how can I get promoted in this expert track. So maybe at a bigger company, they have these plans all laid out. But especially in smaller companies, it might not be that obvious to actually find this expert track, and it takes a lot of effort from the contributor part as well to sort of carve out this path. So it might take quite some investment to find out like how can I become an even a better contributor. So I've created these slides just to get a little bit of an idea of these different levels. I don't know if it's super obvious for everyone, but maybe we'll just fly through them and get a little bit of an idea. And this is also something like everyone labels this differently. So I've just basically tried to take a common denominator of what everyone is saying about this to get a little bit of an idea, like what are these kinds of levels that people are talking about. Basically, you start as a junior, you learn the basics of production, so becoming actually an individual contributor. Learning how to destructure work items, for instance, so having a big task and finding out what these separate tasks are. And usual common denominators that you still have a dependency on one of the other team members. So if there's a junior, there has to be a senior that helps this person find out about this contribution job. Then you go into this senior/tech lead. It's quite a broad spectrum, but something that I found is like this person is responsible for its own development and rollout of a certain feature or a certain product that's being created. It's someone who guides their team through technical difficulties, challenges, and issues. So it's actually able to help people that are junior. Maybe also consulting other teams about how they could experiment designs from other engineering teams. Consult on software or experiment designs for other teams. So they might actually fly into another project and help out the teams over there. And this idea of aligning the technical efforts with business value, and that's something that we at Lively see as well. Like when you get into a more sort of well, it's hard to say senior if you're this group of super young people, of course, but this concept that you're thinking from a business perspective as well. Like what's the value of this feature, and getting involved with a client as well, and finding out what's something that delivers value. Does it make sense for everyone? I see some heads nodding. That's
and
good.
in between junior and senior, it's like a big step from dependence to own development and consulting.
Well, you have this term meteor as well, but it was so sort of vague everywhere. I didn't want to post it somewhere. It might be like the limbo a little bit between junior and meteor. So you're not completely dependent anymore, but you're also not doing your complete own rollouts of stuff or being responsible for a big part. I think it's always sort of more of a gradual scale, but I think the bigger companies, they have quite strict cuts, like either you're a junior or either you're a senior, and you have to sort of build a portfolio and show that you're currently doing your job at a senior level, so sort of like a proof of it before you get this title.
And we also don't have just junior or senior, but we have for junior two sets, so junior, and then
Okay.
senior, junior, or something.
Mhm.
We have different names, but
Okay.
the idea is that you don't have just two, but you have like several steps.
Yeah.
We have 7 levels in total.
Okay. Quite a lot.
Junior level?
Yes. Junior.
Level 1 and then level 7 is that you step 7.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Nice.
Wow, quite a lot.
So it's 7 in total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which level are you guys on?
Nice. So maybe also something that I saw sort of in the we're big into the front end development scene. What I see a lot of individual contributors sort of that achieve higher levels also do is like they go into more of public speaking and being an expert on a certain specific topic. Maybe doing some writing blogs about this, writing I don't know company research about a certain topic. This might be like super concrete things, like if you do these kind of things and you create these, you add this value to the company. It's also things that help you prove that you're a part of this higher level as well.
I think part of this is also especially for the expert track. You also see open source contributions if you're a committer on an open source project or something.
Yeah.
If you're an open source committer on a large project, then you're pretty sure you're an expert in something.
Yeah, it's a good one. All right, and then you have this like super high level or super deep expert track where you get more of a product level responsibility. So it's not just about a certain feature or niche, but like the full product. Doing things like strategic planning and aligning roadmaps. It's maybe a little bit abstract, but I just wanted to put some of this stuff out there as well. And be part of setting goals, so finding out what achievable goals are and sort of implementing these plans. Doing cross team infrastructure and sort of knowledge sharing and making sure that other teams are able to use common features, for instance. Something that I found it. All right, so this might be a little bit of a controversial slide, but it's just sort of from the top of my mind. Maybe signs that you might go for an expert track. You like picking niches, and you've got very deep knowledge about a certain topic. You like sharing your knowledge. You like sharing your knowledge and experience if you want to sort of grow in this expert track. The tendency to manage projects over people, something that if you're much more focused about the actual product itself versus the people that are doing this or finding sort of things that are not working that well because of people not communicating, and sort of like to let the work speak for itself instead of having it be explained or communicating about this more. That's maybe just a little bit of a bias from my side, but it's just maybe something to consider. All right. Management track, which is like a bit of the ugly term, but I still wanted to sort of add some context here as well. I looked it up and it said management, the process of dealing with or controlling things or people. It's quite a sort of a negative connotation. And actually there's a second one, trickery, deceit, which I found sort of interesting. Trickery. But what was one of the reasons that I want to elaborate on this? I read a lot about this as well. Like we don't have any management at all. We don't need all the line managers. Everyone is completely autonomous, and everyone, every team is completely self-sufficient and do everything themselves. So we've got this holacracy or whatever, autonomous teams and self-sufficient squads. But how do you actually do? Well, you already got into it a little bit. The talent and growth management. And I think this is one of the most important parts of what management nowadays really is, or sort of should be, from my perspective. So what does this mean? I mean, who is going to nurture these self-supporting teams to make sure that everyone is confident with their role and confident with the way that they are growing or staying at their track and just gaining more experience. I think it has a lot to do with facilitation, so being more sort of on the sidelines to and being a sparring partner for people to find out if they are meeting their ambitions and making them think about what their ambitions are and where you want to go. So I would see it more as like linking pins or liaisons between different teams or different levels. Could see it in like agile coaches, people that are supporting teams and figuring out how we can take away certain barriers or things that are not going that well. People that do hiring and making sure that new talent gets into teams and they get into teams that are in a team that fits well as well. You cannot just have the same people in all the same people in a team, so you need to mix and match this as well. And that's also something that's like a specific skill to have. I would say, project management and people management. These kind of parts that also can be seen as more of a facilitation to make sure that people grow.
So the agile coaches are for you part of the management, right?
Sorry?
Agile coaches? Just wondering. Like.
Yeah, I think this is also really much from my perspective, of course, in a smaller company as well. So this is the parts where I see the aspects of the management coming forward. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You would not see it as that if you're really looking at it purely from someone's just helping an agile team understand how they can do Scrum better. But I would see it as one of those things that's nurturing and supporting people in doing their contribution.
So maybe to actually all of those things in a large corporate, especially like ING, those are roles for different people.
Yeah.
And so if you go back to the list you have.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I think basically the first, the third, and the fifth, so people management, and actually the last one is also part. That would be really on the what you call a manager, and the rest are different people as well.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I made a similar sheet with sort of the junior, senior, and super senior levels there as well. What is a junior manager actually? And this was the part where I wanted to say like. This is usually just an individual contributor that is sort of looking around and seeing like this is not good. We can do better as a group. It might be better if we improve some of these things that are going on. I think sort of finding out what a junior manager is I actually find it pretty hard because for me a junior manager would be a individual contributor that has sort of management tendencies and exploring this field. So maybe having a sense of being in service of your team instead of just producing, overseeing, reporting about projects, or sort of being a linking pin with another team might be things that would be considered as first step into management. I read a nice blog by Natasha Vinnick, and she said it's no longer about you making the right technical decisions, it's about guiding your team to make these decisions, which is, you could maybe interpret it as, I'm just delegating it and someone else has to do it now, but you can also see it like, what do I have to achieve within this team for them to what do they need to make these decisions themselves? And it's a very different way of looking at making a technical decision. So maybe even though you're able to make this decision yourself, you're sort of a meta research on how can you facilitate this team of creating this decision itself, and what are the questions that you're going to ask, and the hurdles that you're going to take away. So maybe some considerations about going into this management track. I've seen this line come by, like having an influence beyond your own work, which is something of a motivation that people have to step into this management work. Sort of something that might be considered as a reason not to go into management, like this cost of cognitive switching. So people that have this tendency, that do a little bit of management and do production work, have this high cost of constantly switching between these tasks. When you completely focus on doing more of this management task, that you are actually able to contribute more towards your team. And something that I also found is a good manager is an accessible manager. So there was a story about someone explaining that they went into spending more time as a manager because they wanted to be available to actually, at the moment that someone needed assistance, that they could also get to this person. So that was one of the considerations.
I think we in the back here agree that the last one is probably the most
Really
important.
Yeah.
Living proof of that.
Yeah. And how hard it can be then for a manager that does all these tasks to actually find the time to actually spend time with people and to be available and to have these one-on-one sessions.
Yeah, and actually I think that when you go from junior to more senior in management, it's usually about the number of people that report to you.
And the biggest strain on the time basically to see all these people.
Junior will be, you have a squad
Mm-hmm.
or a chapter or whatever you want to call it, of 5 to 10 people, whatever. At some point if you're leading a department of 100 people,
Yeah. And do you really have the time to see everyone?
No, you
Yeah.
don't. So
Yeah.
that's why you would have levels of management. Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. Nice.
I'd like to actually maybe even add one the moment. I realized that I had a great manager when I saw that he was able to create teams of people that he didn't agree with. Like if you're in a hiring position, you have a tendency to basically hire people that validate whatever you believe in. If you see someone that's able of taking people on that actually doesn't associate with, or doesn't agree on certain things, but creating teams that are homogeneous, it's in my opinion and my experience a very good way to see if you trust this person or not, or if you would feel at home. Because he's able to see beyond what validates himself and what feels like good for him, but really outside of this and look at what those people need.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's like also making sure that the opposite of your own opinion is available on the team to make sure there's a healthy conversation.
And in a very concrete fashion, when you interview, if you see, for example, a lot of introverts and a typical manager that's much more extrovert, yeah? Or the other way around, or behavior that is in a lot of the same people, for me it's a bit of a red flag.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. It's quite challenging actually from the hiring side to achieve this. Yeah. Because you're basically selling the story, and it's usually easier to sell if someone's completely agrees with you. Yeah. All right, so maybe for the media senior level, some things that we found, like what are the things that are going on there, like one-on-ones with direct reports, basically managing around 5 to 15 people. Would consider this medium.
What do you mean with the top
senior
one?
management.
Sorry, what do you mean with one-on-ones with direct reports?
One-on-ones with direct reports, so that the person managing actually blocks time in its calendar to see the people that he is managing structurally.
So not the 100 people who you're talking about?
No, I don't think there's people that are able to do this. It's always going in layers. I think the part where you're going to even higher management, so you have more people to manage, that it becomes about managing a group of managers, which is a different sort of skill set altogether, and making sure that they manage the rest of the people as well. So they're never going to have like 100 one-on-ones, but they're going to make sure that everyone has a one-on-one. Something like this. I recently read this book, A Radical Candor. Don't know if people have seen this one. It's from Kim Scott, manager at Google, and she explains a lot of these topics as well, like how can you be a kick-ass boss without losing your humanity, which is all about sort of building a very personal relationship with people, so caring personally for someone, and still giving very direct feedback. And like this optimal mix between it would make you radical candor, would make you a nice a nice boss to work with, because you are able to grow with good feedback. All right, and then Senior Plus, I was already spoiling a little bit about it, like a manager of managers, and she explains this in the book as well. Like one of the methods to manage more of these more people would actually to use something like skip meetings, to sometimes have a one-on-one with a report of one of your reports, to be able to find out if this manager to talk about the stuff that you don't talk about with your manager, like about your manager itself. And there's all these sort of techniques to be able to nurture this bigger group of people, make sure that other people nurture subsets of the group, which I found really, really super interesting. Principal level, which gets much closer to the business part. I didn't want to elaborate super lot in this, because I have the feeling like every company has a sort of a different top level structure with executives or board or VPs or engineering masters, but yeah, being closer to these business decisions and client relationships is something that usually happens in this upper part of management, and being more involved in the mission and the strategic vision of the company. Just to give a little bit of an insight to this. All right, so signs you might want to go for the management track. Again, things that might put you in that spot. Now, enjoying mentoring. I think it's something that's super crucial, and well, probably the other mentors can agree with me there. Enjoy receiving and giving feedback, and seeing this as something that's important and worthwhile. Find yourself taking ownerships of challenges. I think this is one of the also from our point of view, something that immediately recognizes like this has potential to be more of a growth nurturer as well. Maybe also to get drawn to writing and communicating, writing stuff down, and finding out ways to communicate messages in different ways, or seeing the possibilities of being able to communicate very well. One of the last questions I wanted to ask was, can you be a good manager without having been a good contributor? We already talked about it a little bit, of course, but I would maybe someone can take a stab at this.
Who wants to be a manager, maybe? Management track, raise their hands.
Yeah, on the left, in your blind spot behind you.
It's like,
yeah.
I think it's important to have some experience, because you get sometimes new people who come new in the game, and then you can always lead them the way. So I think it's important to have some skills and to have knowledge about what you're managing. So.
Yeah.
I suppose it would also give like a fresh view on something, if you from like a different business, starting out in management, I suppose would get you into like a fresh mindset and looking at stuff. If you start out with being a contributor, sorry, I think you would be a bit locked in a mindset, I suppose, because you view the challenges from bottom up, I guess, and not from the top angle.
Yeah.
But well, I agree with you as well. Being a contributor from the start out also has its benefits.
Also, it's important, like if you have a group of developers, that you also always can spar with them about their ideas. So you don't like just say every time yes, but you get in discussion and get the best out of them, and also give your own contribution. Like maybe this is a good part, and then they can comment on it.
Yeah.
So I think
challenge the ideas.
Yeah. So that you know where they're talking about. Like you don't know the the deep stuff like in programming, but you know the most stuff, and you can like talk to all the developers in their own subject.
Okay. All right. So the last subject I wanted to discuss was the real world, and maybe a little bit warning about this as well. So this clear separation between this expert and management track actually does not happen in most companies, I would argue. And we've got, with Uber and ING, so like very big, high-profile people with HR people working all day and night to make sure that these tracks are available. But for the rest of the, for the rest of the companies, this might not actually be the case. So sort of what I wanted to say was, please be aware of this and keep this story in your in the backs of your mind. So if you're being promoted to management, please know that it does not have to be, and that being a better individual contributor is also a track that is super worthwhile, and it doesn't always have to be that if you grow that you go into management somewhere. And if this doesn't happen, please find a place where you can keep growing as an individual contributor, because I don't know, it just feels like there is this tendency of people that are super senior in their field and have had years of experience, that it's almost sort of frowned upon to say, well, how many people do you manage? Like, I don't manage any people, I'm just like really, really super good at my job. And it's like, oh, that's strange, they should put you in management or something. It's like a big bias or something of an unwritten rule or something, even though it's complete bollocks. So that's something that I wanted to address. We're going a little bit into the time slot, and the pizza has already arrived.
We smell.
I've got some more slides, but I don't know what the current vibe in the audience is. I just want to continue just maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes more. Is that okay? Yeah. Everyone okay with this? All right. Then I'm going to sort of... Sorry? Yeah, grab a bite, pal. Yeah, we can... No.